Welcome back to the channel. If y'all ever had second thoughts about doing your own upholstery, I'm here to tell you it's not that big of a deal, and hopefully by the end of this video, y'all will be a lot more confident and really doing it completely from the ground up, because I went from bare frame, did burlap, cut foam, redid my seat covers, the whole 9 yards. Alright, so starting with the bottom seat, just flip it over. You'll want to start taking the hog rings off. So with a pair of wide flat pliers, just grab the hog ring and just quarter twist, and the hog rings will come right off. Don't try to cut these, because the hog rings will just, you take a chance on them flying and hitting something. And normally if you're recovering your seat, your car is freshly painted or in the background, or you might have kids running around or neighbor's dog, you just don't want to shoot them off and hit something. Just pull them off and throw them on the ground, or put them in your pocket, throw them in trash, whatever you want to do. Just don't be barefoot if you're throwing them on the ground, because they are sharp. So once all those are off, just start pulling it off. The little flap in the back, you have to get the hog rings off of the inside too. That kind of holds the seat nice and tight to the bottom. And then once that's off, just pull the cover off and that'll expose the foam. With the foam exposed, if your foam's in decent shape, you can reuse it. Just keep in mind there's been 50 years of farts and sweats and what kind of back seat stuff goes on. So it probably will stink. And if it stinks, it'll just transfer that smell to your car. A lot of the old car smells are normally the foam or some kind of cardboard or something, because it's going to hold in all that smells. It's not hard to cut new foam. It's just flat and it'll take shape over the years. This foam's in pretty decent shape. Just take note of how it's shaped per se. As far as it's leaning over the sides, it's hanging over the front, it's not hanging over the back. So that way when you go to cut your new foam, you know where to cut and where to leave some extra material. Now that the foam's off, just inspect your frames. Make sure there's no broken springs or weak springs or springs that are popped out of place. Just pop them in place. You can buy there's a blank spring material off Amazon. If you do have a broken spring here and there, you can bend them and replace them, or just do a little spot repair and clip them back in. My frames were in good shape, so I didn't have to do any kind of repairs. After all that, you're going to want to sand the frames down and paint them. From the factory, they weren't painted, so you could just put new foam on it and go. But if I'm pulling something out of the car, I want this car to last a while, so I'm going to end up painting it. Try to build a little bit better than it was in the factory. So you can use any kind of way to strip it. You can use a wire wheel, just a wire brush, just anything's better than nothing. Sandblaster, chemical strips, whatever. You can use the power of the sun, whatever you have to strip rust off of metal. After that, just spray it. I'm just using a Rust-Oleum flat black, just whatever I had on the shelf. You can get it at your local parts store on Amazon. You'll probably go through about 2 or 3 cans of it, just because trying to paint a wire, you're going to waste a lot of paint. Could be a little beneficial just to brush it on instead of spraying it. Won't waste as much. If you find this stuff interesting and helpful, just go ahead and like, subscribe, comment. If you see me messing up anywhere, which I'm sure I am, or if you have any more helpful advice. Once you let this thing dry, you put it back on your table. I went ahead and measured the frame and just cut the frame or the foam about 2 inches wider on both the sides, and then I measured down from the top to bottom of the front of the frame and just left that. If it was 4 inches, I just added 4 inches of the foam just for that overlap. To cut the foam, just use a extendo razor blade. You can see it in my hand here. When I cut the back corners, you just extend it out and the foam just slices like butter. Real simple. The back corners, I just traced them out with the foam on the seat, and then once the foam's cut to fit, I just cut a slice of burlap. I ordered a ton of burlap, so I just cut mine long and just folded it up and over. I figured it wouldn't hurt having a little extra burlap on there, being the burlap's keeping the foam from destroying itself on those springs. So you could hog ring the burlap to the frame. I didn't. I just left it loose, and I'm allowing the cover to hold everything nice and tight. So the back of the cover, you're going to want to add some kind of wire. If it doesn't already have wire, you can use a wire coat hanger or welding rod. I have a stainless steel 3/32 thick TIG wire that I'm using to hold my seats together, simply for the fact that I feel if I use steel, it could rust and just stain the material. So the stainless shouldn't stain. So now make sure you mark the center of your seat cover. Don't just eyeball it off of a seam. Like the seam that's in the center front edge of my seat isn't actually center, so make sure you measure something. I'm measuring off of the front gap section of the bottom of the seat. Now you're going to want to pull that metal wire you just installed nice and tight in the back and push down to right, probably like the second row of spring loops. That's about where it wants to pull down to. So just pull it tight, start hog ringing, work from the center out, and just do about 2 or 3 and then you can turn it around and do the front. Now the front, this is why the mark in the center comes in handy, because when you're pulling and prying and trying to hold everything just right and then balancing the hog ring and set pliers, you're just going to want to have a quick reference of, yep, I'm centered, hog ring it, and you're good to go. And once you get that in, your seat cover is going to look like a can of busted biscuits. Just don't fear, just keep on pulling and stretching and just work your way from the center out, and you'll get it take shape pretty quick. So just one hog ring at a time, just keep pulling, hog ring, do the other side, pull hog ring, flip it to the back, do the same thing. Once you get to the edges, just pull the cover up over all that foam, and it'll all tuck in nice and neat, and then just work from the front of the seat to the back of the seat down the side, and that'll pull all the wrinkles to the back. Once you get to the very back, that little flap in the corner that you notch the foam for, just pull that dude up towards the center of the seat and then hog ring it in. It seems to work the best for eliminating most of the wrinkles. And then I just put about five or six hog rings in that, just about every inch and a half apart. Now this part, you can see I'm just kind of tucking the foam in on the side before I pull it up tight. Don't worry about cutting that off. You're really just trying to keep a lot of pressure up on to fill up the seat. So the more foam you have, not really the better, but it's just going to keep that seat cover looking nice and full. So if you do have a little bit weak spot or a little deflated spot, you could pull it back open and shove some cotton in there, just some kind of like a pillow stuffing or something, just something to fill that void, make it look full. You could cut like a little thin piece of foam and shove it up in there. I didn't have to do that. This foam seemed to do the trick. Metal hook that ended up ripping this corner as I was pulling it up and over, so I ended up just wrapping it around the edge, and it seemed that was sticking up, but it's on the back of the seat, no one's gonna see it, and it pulled in nice and tight. Now you got your seat done, just pull that flap over and then just hog ring it back to the original little spot. Again, I reached through and grabbed that metal wire again just to have double the hog rings on it. I felt, I'm already doing it, why not? And then on the ends, just kind of fold it in on itself and down. Best, I guess, kind of like a triangle, I felt like it was. Just tuck it in and hog ring it, and that's basically all. Then go around the seat, just make sure you got hog rings in every little hole and nook and cranny that you can. If there was a hole in the frame, I put a hog ring in it just to make sure it's not going to pull and rip out. Now to start on the top. The top was a lot harder than the bottom. I think just because of I replaced the cotton stuff with foam, and maybe that's just my experience. So just take all the hog rings out, pull the cover off. Take note that once you pull the material away, there's going to be this burlap that's supposed to hold the top of the seat up, make it look full. So I measured mine, and it was about 3 1/4 inches wide, but you could do 3 inch, you could do 3 1/4. Your seat cover is going to pull that tight. So I did 3 1/4, and my seat came out pretty good. But just keep that in mind when you get to that point. If you have that left in your seat, just measure it and try to duplicate it once you get going. And then with the seat frame stripped, just go out there and sand it down real quick, spray it, drink whatever Mountain Dew flavor they got at Dollar General that day, and just let it sit out there and bake. Once it's done, when I was doing the bottom seat, I ended up running out of hog rings to where I only had a handful left. So I had to wait a few days before I did the top. And one night, I just messed around with the burlap, and I didn't record it like a dum-dum. So what I did, I took 10 inches wide of burlap, took a metal wire, stuck it in the middle, and then folded the burlap like a taco over the wire, hoggering that to the back edge of the seat, pulled it tight, and then marked down it 3 1/4 inches. Took another piece of wire, put it at that 3 1/4 inch mark, folded the burlap back over it, and then just hog ringed it back in, and then just left. I feel like that's going to be pretty tight. It shouldn't go anywhere. I didn't have to sew anything. I don't like having to sew stuff. So then the extra step I did was I took some metal wire and just kind of crisscrossed, ran it, and threaded it through the metal frame underneath the burlap. So if the burlap ever breaks, like it was in that seat frame originally, the foam will still have that wire to kind of hold on to and maybe last a couple more years. And then just cut your foam just like you did the bottom. Just leave a little extra on the sides and enough for the top. And then take your burlap, fold it up on itself, lay your foam, and then you're ready to start doing your seat cover. Add your metal strips where they're missing, if you got any little hog ring section missing. And this seat is extremely important to mark center, especially if you're adding foam like I am instead of the cotton. You're going to want to stick with 2-inch foam. I wouldn't go any heavier than 2-inch. So just mark the centers, start with the bottom, get that going, and then the best method I found was to take the seat cover, have it facing down on the table, and push it up against the wall, and then use your body weight to like push down on the frame while you use your hand to like pull the seat cover up and over. It it was a nightmare. It took a lot of finagling and holding, and that was the best way I could find. So just push down on the frame, pulling, and then once you get a hog ring, it'll start going. Now on this one, I couldn't hog ring the center mark because the spots to hog ring were off to the side. So I had to mark the frame center. Once you get a couple hog rings on the top, just do like you did the bottom. Work from the middle out, rotating bottom and top. And once you get to the edges, just wrap the edge around, then work from the top to the bottom, pulling all your wrinkles out as you go. Shape really fast. Once you get it all hog ringed in, I went around just hog ringed about every 2 to 3 inches. It looked visually appealing to me, about the right amount of hog rings. It didn't seem like it was too much. It didn't seem like it had any droops anywhere. So hopefully now y'all got a better understanding of doing your own seats. These really weren't that bad. Hopefully the video gave y'all a little bit more confidence. So if I'm gonna be overly picky about these seat covers, just to pick out flaws, just in case y'all are trying to get like a Concours or some kind of high-end show car quality, I'll pick out some things that might be not appealing to some people. So first off, biggest thing I noticed is the seam running down it isn't actually in the center, it's off to the side. So that's kind of, if you have OCD, that kind of would bother you. Otherwise, I just recovered this seat cover and it's 35 degrees outside. So possibly these will come out, but it has a little bit of wrinkling along this, what I'll call ferrule bead thing. I don't know the proper term, but it's got some wrinkles here. It's got some wrinkles over here. And then some of these bends aren't the curviest or round something curve thing, like most of these are, but over here it kind of I guess they ran out of this was probably a Friday cover. It's a little straight. They stopped curving it. I'm happy with these. If I was to do it all over again, knowing what I know now about these covers, I'd still buy them. So thanks for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that'd really help the channel out and get me boosted, more motivated to make more content. So thanks for watching.